Hello everyone, my name is Saxon. I am a recruitment officer from the Faculty of Science at the University of Melbourne. And tonight we're going to talk about the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, admissions and selection guidelines, application processes and entry requirements for selection into the 2024 intake of the program. With me today in the event is my fellow recruitment officer from the Faculty of Science, Lachlan Hooper, who has joined us in the Q&A, so he'll be answering some of your questions. Please note that you're welcome to submit any questions that you have throughout the session using the Q&A function in the event platform. And note that if you see someone has posted a question that you would like to have answered, you can vote for that question to be answered by Lachlan or myself at the end of the session. I'd like to start today's session with an acknowledgement of country. So today I'd like to acknowledge the elders and descendants who have been and are the custodians of these lands and Australia's, if not the world's, first scientists and cultivators. We acknowledge that the land on which we are privileged to meet, work on, to work and where our students study is a place of age-old ceremony of celebration, initiation and renewal, and that the local Aboriginal peoples have had and continue to have a unique role in the life of these lands. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to any traditional custodians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians joining us today. And Wominjeka, as you'd see on the sign at one of the entrances to our Parkville Campus, Wominjeka is a Wirrung word for welcome. I'll introduce you to the University of Melbourne. The University of Melbourne is Australia's leading university, and for over 160 years, we've made distinctive contributions to society, attracted some of the brightest and most motivated of students and researchers from over 150 countries. Our world-class teaching facilities, 100+ research institutes and industry connections support our annual 52,000 students and professionals to make meaningful careers out of solving globally significant problems. We're an internationally recognised institution and were recently ranked as the 14th best university in the world by the US World University Rankings 2023. And another statistic that we're very proud of at the University of Melbourne is our number 8 in graduate employability. This has been brought about because of not only our teaching quality, but also our commitment to students being able to pursue the careers that they intend to whilst studying with us and as a result of studying with us. We are also ranked, Melbourne itself is ranked the 5th best student city. And depending on where you look, Melbourne is typically ranked number 1 in Australia for universities, but this may vary with the rankings that you look at. So let's dive right into the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. I'm going to talk through the program in general and also have a little bit of a dive into the course structure, what it looks like to study the program, as well as answering some key questions about fees, scholarships, etc. The Doctor of Veterinary Medicine is a 4-year graduate entry program that enables direct entry into the veterinary profession across international places and Australia. It has 1 intake per year in February with 160 places available in each intake. Roughly 90 to 110 of these places are reserved for domestic students. You'll have the opportunity as part of studying the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine to learn in world-class facilities across 2 campuses. So this is our Parkville Campus, our main campus in Melbourne, and our Werribee Campus in the western suburbs of Melbourne, which is a dedicated clinical skills training campus for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. We are the oldest veterinary science school in Australia, and we combine over 100 years of experience in world-class education, as well as talented and experienced teaching staff who are at the forefront of veterinary science research and bring this knowledge into the classroom for you to learn from. Another one of our rankings for DVM is that we are considered number 26 in the world for veterinary sciences, specifically by the QS World University Rankings. On completion of the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, you'll be able to practice as a veterinarian across a whole host of locations around the world. And we are internationally recognised and accredited by the Australasian Veterinary Boards Council, the American Veterinary Medical Association, and the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. Our graduates can work across the globe, and I've put a couple of those locations on the map, which includes Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, the USA, Canada, and the UK. For the USA and Canada, you are required to complete an additional test to be able to practice as a vet or a veterinary practitioner in these countries, called the NAVLE. The NAVLE students from the University of Melbourne who sit the NAVLE have had a 92% pass rate over the past 5 years, which is another stat that we're very proud of from our veterinary medicine cohort. Obviously, when you study the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, the main career outcome of this program is to become a registered veterinary practitioner. But there are also complementary career outcomes to this program, which are broader than just veterinary practice, which still include considerations for animal health, welfare, and well-being. So this includes the opportunity to open potentially some private practices in veterinary medicine, including potentially doing some training in specialist areas of veterinary medicine. You could look to go into government and policy, advising on animal matters and affairs in Australia and potentially around the world. You could look to join us at the University of Melbourne to do research or some further study, to be on the forefront and develop cutting edge technologies and find new ideas to solve veterinary medicine problems. You could be teaching in tertiary education alongside research, so teaching the next round of students who wish to become vets. You may like to pursue studies in agricultural sciences, and you'll get some hands-on experience with production animals in this program, which would complement a career in this space. Pharmaceutical companies, drugs and pharmaceutical products make a huge part of veterinary practice, so you might find yourself working in these spaces too, as well as things like animal welfare agencies similar to government services, pursuing internships and residencies, so getting some specialist hands-on training, or you could find yourself doing not-for-profit work or working in development studies in developing countries or around the world, or in places where your skills and expertise are needed for those most in need. We train you for these wide variety of career outcomes, with obviously veterinary practitioner at the forefront of this, over this 4-year program, by combining key theoretical knowledge and skills alongside very strong experiences in clinical settings, hands-on experiences. So I've got a bit of a display here showing kind of the split of how the program is taught and what content is covered in each year. So year 1 and year 2 is spent at the Parkville Campus, and the key focus of these years is to build your theoretical knowledge to then complement your hands-on experience in the later years of the program. In year 1, you'll be introduced to the scientific and theoretical basis of animal health and disease, with a detailed focus on anatomy and physiology. And we have some fantastic resources, which I'll show you a picture of shortly, to complement this teaching. You'll also focus on building some basic animal handling skills, including a field trip to our Werribee Campus, which is a 3rd campus you'll get to engage with, which is specifically focused on agricultural sciences. The year 2 of the program, you'll further that theoretical knowledge and pursue studies in disease and professional practice, as well as, similar to your first year, doing some non-clinical placements during your summer holidays and potentially winter. These are typically conducted at farms, but you might find yourself in other places as well, depending on the opportunities that you pursue or what is available during your intake. The 3rd year of the program is spent at Werribee. This year is known as the clinical transition year, where students study the principles of clinical medicine and surgery that complement veterinary medicine practice. You'll practice important preclinical skills for different groups of animals, such as small animal, equine, wildlife, and production animal handling. And we have some fantastic resources, such as big fake animal models, which you get to practice this clinical skills on. You'll also have the opportunity to select a PreTracks study. So this is 2 to 4 weeks of study in your 3rd year, complemented by additional weeks of study in your 4th year, where you get to gain, I guess, a deeper industry insight and industry-ready skills in an area of interest within veterinary medicine that you would like to pursue. This is available in equine and horses, small animal, production animal sciences, and government, industry, and conservation health. So these are completed as part of the professional practice subject you'll complete in your 3rd year. Please note that the completion of PreTracks and Tracks does not qualify you to be as a specialist upon graduation of the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, but can lead towards opportunities that would allow you to pursue specialist training after completing the program. Your 4th year, you really don't have one particular campus or location in mind. Instead, it's a full year lecture free of clinical placements and rotations. So this year is comprised of 42 weeks of supervised clinical hours, internships, placements, whichever you would like to call it. And this is split in half. So it's 21 weeks of core rotations. These are placements selected by Melbourne Veterinary School for you to complete in order to meet your requirements to complete the program, and then an additional 21 weeks of extramural placements. So these are placements that you get to choose, and you might like to do these overseas or with a particular set of animals or something to complement the track studies. I've mentioned the PreTracks before. You'll do additional track studies as part of your core rotations, and you can switch between PreTrack and track if you change your mind halfway through. So this is just a couple of images showcasing what it would look like to study the DVM in your 1st and 2nd year. You'll be studying in our Parkville campus, which is our city campus, and you can see a beautiful picture of that on the left. And maybe this would showcase some of the things like orientation or getting to know the campus. On the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a picture of some DVM students or Doctor of Veterinary Medicine students in their jumpsuits out at a farm. This is very reminiscent of some of that preclinical hands-on training you would receive up at the Werribee campus or as part of those extramural placements, preclinical placements in your 1st and 2nd year to build that animal handling skills. Now, I mentioned before that in your 1st and 2nd year, you'll be focusing on doing some studies in anatomy and physiology. And a lot of your studies overall for the 1st and 2nd year are conducted in our Western Edge Biosciences building on the western edge of the Parkville campus. This is a practically brand new building which was completed in 2019, and it's a combination of Faculty of Science and the Faculty of Medicine, Dentistry and Health Sciences, where both cohorts complete studies in anatomy and physiology. A key part of the building is the dedicated veterinary medicine teaching spaces, which are only available to staff from the Melbourne Veterinary School and the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. The GIF on the screen that's changing images is showcasing the object-based learning lab, which complements your studies in anatomy and physiology. And these models are used in the classroom and are only available to you as Doctor of Veterinary Medicine students or future Doctor of Veterinary Medicine students. What is not pictured is the dedicated laboratory or dissecting wet labs, which are specifically for vet students, as well as private locker spaces, showers, and recreational rooms in the ground, in the basement floor of the Webbs building, which are dedicated to vet students. These purpose-built facilities have been put in place to ensure your success in the program. This is a very intense program, and we want to ensure that you have all the support and resources you need to complete it, hence why these have been incorporated into the Biosciences building design. Moving on to your third year, you're going to move out to Werribee in the western suburbs of Melbourne. Similar to the Western Edge Biosciences building, but even more dedicated, the Werribee campus was purpose-built for veterinary medicine studies. And this is where you will start to get some of those preclinical skills built up and ready to go for your fourth year of placements. So you'll see a picture of some of our veterinary skills models in the middle on the bottom. So that's one of our students, Katie, who is looking at how to look down a dog's throat correctly to insert, like to intubate it correctly. We've also got dedicated libraries, learning laboratories, and all kinds of different spaces. As mentioned before, you'll select your PreTrack or tracks in your third and fourth year. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. So the government, industry and conservation health, so the little echidna, will focus more on wildlife or more exotic animals. It'll look at things like biosecurity, policy, and you might gain some experience in zoos or with conservation organisations or government organisations. It includes a wide variety of animals, but there's a specific focus within the program, within this track on Australian native wildlife, because lots of incentives regarding biosecurity and conservation are centred around our native wildlife in Australia. Production animals is focused on animals used in agricultural settings. So this will look at maintaining their health and well-being for agricultural production purposes, and it'll include training with cows, poultry, sheep, pigs, and including some extra farm experience, but in a more clinical sense. The small animal track will focus on more common household pet or companion animals. So thinking about dogs, cats, birds, rodents, and even some reptiles as well. And equine will focus on horses. So you might find yourself working in regional areas, and you may gain work experience with specific equine veterinary settings, or even things like racing organisations, anywhere where horses are kind of involved. Your fourth year will take you many places as you complete your 42 weeks of clinical placement. And this is just a little map of some of the places where our students have completed placements before. So as you'll see, there's a big cluster over Australia and the US and Canada. Most of your placements in your fourth year will be conducted in Australia, but those extramural placements may be completed overseas. And this is just a few pictures of our students on their clinical placements, and just showcasing the variety of placements that you may engage with as a prospective student. So you might find yourself doing some placements with animal surgery, or even dealing with some more exotic animals. This is another picture of our student Katie, who did a placement up in North Queensland with some sea turtles. You might find yourself working with donkeys or doing some extra stuff with horses. These are some extra photos as well, and I'd like to highlight the one second from the left, which is showcasing the opportunity for international studies in your extramural clinical placements for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. So this is a picture of Keely Barry and Kate Maloney, who have now graduated, with Associate Professor Dr. Charlie L. Hage in the middle, who were flown over to Indonesia, so Lombok and Kuta, to spay and neuter cats and dogs in these areas. And that's them completing those operations and procedures in an absolutely amazing regional setting in Lombok and Kuta. Absolutely amazing. And then there's some other pictures of our student, Alyssa, who is an international student who did some placements in Joey sanctuaries, in animal surgery, and also looked at doing some work with standardbred racehorses. So that's the photo on the right. Just a few FAQs before I get into some technical details regarding fees and scholarships. A common question that we receive is, what are the contact hours for the program? The first year of the DVM is typically about 22 hours per week. The second year is about 28 contact hours per week. The third year is about 35. And then the fourth year, you're expected to be working 9 to 5 full time at your clinical placements. Now, this is a rough estimate, and you'll likely need to commit even more time to outside of classes and dedicated study groups study. It's a very intense program. There's lots of knowledge to squish into 2 years so that you can then pick up your clinical skills and apply it in your fourth year. Do I need to get any vaccinations? Yes, you do. As part of the program, you will be engaging with animals such as goats, cattle, and sheep. And there is a disease called Q fever. It's similar to the flu, which can cause mild to very severe flu-like symptoms and problems. So the Q fever vaccination is provided. It's provided you have to elect to get it during your orientation week, or you might like to get it earlier, as you'll start to do some hands-on stuff with goats, cattle, and sheep about midway through your first semester of study up at the Werribee Campus. The cost of the Q fever vaccination ranges from $100 to $300, depending on where you'd like to get it. It is, and it will incur a fee if you, at any kind of stage, and that includes with the provided Q fever vaccination services that we provide as part of orientation. Will I get the chance to pursue animal handling experience before my fourth year of study? Yes, I've talked a lot about preclinical extramural opportunities, especially in farm settings. These are available from your first year onwards, and you're more than welcome to pursue additional animal handling experience, or even maybe find a job as a vet nurse at practices in the local area. Obviously, you don't want to live too far away whilst you're needing to study between 22 to 35 hours a week. Are there exchange opportunities? Yes, these are completed as part of your clinical placements in your extramural 21 weeks. These may be advertised to you, or you might be offered the opportunity via the Melbourne Veterinary School, or you might like to secure internships via your external connections. Any extramural placement still needs to be approved by Melbourne Veterinary School. You can't just decide to go to a veterinary practice and that's it. There's still a lot of some paperwork that needs to be done. But yes, exchange opportunities are available. Are there any student clubs? Of course there is. The Melbourne Veterinary School has a very strong student cohort. You'll all be studying together the same subjects, almost always the same classes, and you're going to be entering the same profession pretty much. So it's very important that you maintain that connection to your vet student community, and this is done via the the Veterinary Student Society of Victoria. There is a subsection of this club at the University of Melbourne, and they are very active and host different events like balls or get-togethers or just lunches, study groups, etc., and can add to your student experience external to study, add some fun and community engagement. Okay, let's cover fees. In the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, there are both Commonwealth supported places and Australian full fee places available. Let's explain the difference between the two. CSPs, or Commonwealth supported places, are university places subsidised by the Australian government. Commonwealth supported students are still required to pay a discipline-based student contribution amount. So this contribution amount is the amount of the subject cost remaining after the government subsidy is applied. Australian full fee places in comparison have no subsidy by the government applied. It's just the full cost of the subject that you will be incurred if you choose to accept your offer for this place. Going back to Commonwealth supported places, the student contribution amount per year of veterinary study as of 2023 guidelines is $11,800. This may change slightly from year to year, but it should not go up dramatically or drastically. It would maximum be up to like maybe $1,000 difference or something similar to this. And so this this can be split up by subject. There's a particular veterinary sciences sit in a particular band of student contribution amounts, and more information can be found on the fee website about this. But typically all veterinary science subjects fit in the band that would then cost you $11,800 per year of veterinary science study. Australian citizens and permanent humanitarian visa holders may defer the contribution amount, so that's that $11,000 or remaining after the subsidy. They may defer this onto a HEX help loan. You'll see a little box to your right that says, what am I eligible for? This is the Study Assist website, the government's website, which can talk you through more of the requirements and steps to set up your HEX help loan if you gain a Commonwealth supported place and whether you're eligible as well. Australian full fee places in comparison, the indicative total course fee for an Australian full fee place is $277,089 Australian dollars. This is the indicative total course fee for 2024. Payments can be made upfront per subject, so we're not asking you to pay $277,000 upfront, but rather the subject is paid per semester. And you, depending on your citizenship status, Australian citizens definitely, you may be able to defer part of this total course fee onto a fee help loan. Now, I'd encourage you for both students looking at Commonwealth supported places with HEX help loans and Australian full fee places with fee help loans to check your My Help balance at the box below. There's a little blue box that says My Help balance. This is a website that you can check how much money you have left in your study assist or allowance for fee help or HEX help, basically government study assist loans. There's a full balance and you can check how much you have remaining to defer and use for study. Please note that these fees outlined do not include accommodation fees, the student services and amenity fees, which is paid per year. It's roughly about $300, depending on, it can change from year to year, but once again, very small changes. It does not include transport costs or additional equipment and requirements costs. So things like lab coats or shoes or any textbooks or requirements like that. Most textbooks are available via the university library, but you might be required to purchase additional texts. And there's just some disclaimers there and some references to where you can find further information about Commonwealth supported places and Australian full fee places. Lots of information. Scholarships. Now, scholarships for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine are limited at the University of Melbourne. There's no dedicated scholarships for this program in particular. However, there's lots of different external providers that provide scholarships and bursaries for veterinary science study. And I'd encourage you to use the resources listed there, so Study Australia or gooduniversitiesguide.com, and also to have a look at the information published on our Doctor of Veterinary Medicine webpage and the scholarships website. Scholarship availability can vary from intake to intake. year to year. So you might find that for this intake or at this current time, there might not be a scholarship available, and then another one may be available later on. So I encourage you to keep up to date, keep your eyes peeled on the scholarships at UniMel website, which is listed there, and check it regularly for additional opportunities. When you apply to the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, you will be automatically considered for most scholarships that the university allocates out. However, some scholarships might require additional applications, and definitely externally provided scholarships will require additional information or applications. Okay, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of the entry requirements and the application process. I've got an entry requirements checklist displayed, and I'm going to go through each point in detail, and just so that you have all your questions answered about each point and you're made aware of each point. So in summary, to apply for and meet the entry requirements of the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program for the 2024 intake, you will need to complete a science-based undergraduate degree with competitive grades and results, which I'll go through shortly. You'll need to complete prerequisite subjects in biology and biochemistry. You'll need to complete a Casper online situational judgment test. You'll need to complete a personal statement, which includes a 500-word personal statement or personal essay. And in addition to this, details of a CV or work history with animals, and contact details of at least 2 professional referees. You'll need to provide evidence of meeting the University of Melbourne's English language requirements. And if applicable, we'd ask that you please submit a Graduate Access Melbourne application. Okay, let's take a look at a science-based undergraduate degree. What do we mean? So I've got a list of suitable degrees and majors that are accepted into the program. Please note it has to be an undergraduate degree. If you've completed a bachelor's degree in a non-science space or something not related to technically biological sciences, but you've completed a master's in this or a postgraduate qualification, this is not accepted. It has to be an undergraduate degree. These are the degrees and majors that are accepted, but they're not limited to this. And a thing to point out is that these are typically biological science-based majors or areas of study. So we're thinking about things like animal science, biochemistry, ecology, nutrition, zoology, pharmacy, physiotherapy, medicine. They're all very heavily biosciences based. Things like mathematics or physics or maybe something like geology, they're not as heavily based in biology and may not be successful or considered as adequate for entry or acceptable for entry into this program. Degrees in homeopathy, acupuncture, or like Chinese medicine, natural medicines, alternative medicines are not considered science degrees for the purpose of selection into the DVM. And degrees in history or the philosophy of science are also not considered science degrees for the purposes of entry. And please note, nursing degrees, psychology degrees, and neuroscience majors are rarely accepted for entry, but they're kind of on a case-by-case basis. So I'd encourage you that if you're not sure, that you can submit an inquiry and we can have a chat. Prerequisite subjects. In order to meet the requirements of the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, you need to complete studies in biology and biochemistry. You just need to achieve a pass in these subjects. However, your scores will most likely be taken into account for competitive selection. But to meet the prerequisite subjects, you need to achieve a pass in subjects in biology and biochemistry. The biology subject must be taught at a minimum of a first-year level. The biochemistry subject must be taught at a minimum of a second-year level with a strong foundation in chemistry. Equivalent subjects taught at the University of Melbourne are listed in the selection guidelines document, which I'll display the link for that at the end of the session. So these are subjects taught at the University of Melbourne, and you can use the learning outcomes of these subjects if you're studying in another institution to see if it matches our requirements for these subjects. We also have provided a list of approved subjects taught internationally and at Australian and New Zealand institutions. So these are pre-approved biochemistry subjects. This does not include biology. Biology is a little bit more straightforward because it's first year. Just use the subjects listed that are accepted at the University of Melbourne and use those as a guide. If your subjects, if you believe they are accepted, but they're not listed as an approved subject in that approved subject list, or you're just unsure, you're more than welcome to provide a detailed syllabus for the subject in your application. What do you do if you think you don't meet the subject prerequisites or you don't know if you have? You'll need to complete an approved subject, whether that be at the University of Melbourne or at another institution. The University of Melbourne offers a service called the Community Access Program, which allows you to study subjects external to completing a major or a large degree that you need to enrol in or a course. So it's standalone completion of subjects. If you need help with that or that's something that you're interested to do, you can contact our Student Services team, which I'll display their contact details at the end of the session. If you're unsure if you meet subject prerequisites or requirements and you'd like some guidance, I'd encourage you to first, please make sure that you've checked the list of approved subjects that are provided in the selection guidelines, and also take a look at those equivalent University of Melbourne subjects. If it's not listed in the approved subjects and it doesn't seem to match, or you're struggling to match it to the selection guidelines for the University of Melbourne subjects, you can send us a detailed subject syllabus and we will try to get you an answer as to whether that subject is approved or not. Please do this as early as possible, and I'd advise that if you're getting to the crunch time or the deadline for the application for this program and you're unsure, I'd encourage you to submit an application in the meantime, just to ensure that you apply in time to be selected. Yeah, don't wait to the last minute. The Casper Situational Judgment Test. Now, the Casper Situational Judgment Test tests for people skills and behavioural tendencies, such as empathy, professionalism, resilience, and ethics. Basically testing these skills in the context of very people-orientated profession. Now, I know the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine is about animals, but you definitely have to deal with a lot of different people as part of this career. And so this tests for those kind of skills and how well you will fare in potentially complex scenarios or just different realistic hypothetical scenarios that test for these skills. So the test is broken down. It's not a standard yes or no test, or you get a written, there's no correct answer is what I'm trying to say. You'll be presented with video scenarios and you'll either have to respond in video or via text to how you would respond to that scenario, or advice you would give in that scenario, or how you would, what would you do if this happened, or someone asked you this question, or you were presented with a certain dilemma. And this is testing you for all these different things listed on the screen. Some common FAQs about the Casper test. Can I resit or retake the Casper test? No, you cannot resit or retake the Casper test. You may be able to resit. You may be able to take a different type of Casper test. So there's different types depending on different countries or different areas of study that you're applying for. But you cannot retake the same Casper test type. Even if you think you've done badly, you can't resit it or retake it. It's not an option. What score or quartile do I need to achieve to pass? We don't publish this, and we don't publish a score or a particular quartile that you need to achieve, and we will not share this information with you. It's not something that we publish, and the test is not designed to in a pass or fail manner. It's designed with a score that we use for your assessment. How can I prepare for the Casper test? There are some guidelines online, which you can use, the link at the bottom of the FAQs, where the Casper have written up some guidelines to prepare for the test. The University of Melbourne and Casper do not endorse external training or support for the Casper test. It's not something that we want you to particularly prepare for and train in the best way. We want you to present your real answers. How long is the Casper test? It can take up to 2 hours to complete, generally between an hour to 2 hours. I've listed some of the available Casper situational judgment tests below. We've got 3 tests available for this year in September, November and December. You have to register for these tests at least 3 days in advance. And please note that the University of Melbourne only accepts Casper results obtained on one of the approved dates listed. And please keep in mind the Australian time zones as well. FAQs, do I have to complete snapshot or duet? This is a certain component of Casper. You do not. What should I do if I already have sat the Casper but at the wrong time or I'm unsure? Please just contact us and we'll help you, or you may wish to contact the Casper team to clarify which test you completed and what to do next. And do I have to complete Casper before I apply? You do not, but you just need to ensure that you complete the Casper test on one of the dates prescribed. You can apply before this time. The personal statement. We actually have a template provided and available for the personal statement, so you don't need to remember absolutely everything and you don't need to design a beautiful document. We have a personal statement template available in the application portal and as well as the entry requirements page for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. So the personal statement is comprised of a 500-word personal statement or personal essay, which includes additional information, or where you can include additional information about personal motivations to pursue a career in veterinary sciences, or demonstrate a commitment to animal health and welfare, life and work experiences, or things like extracurricular activity, community involvement, things that you think would bolster your application for a veterinary medicine program that may not be mentioned in the second part of the personal statement, which is a table of relevant work experience. This can include paid or unpaid work, and we typically only like you to reference or list things that are related to veterinary sciences or animal sciences or health and welfare. The third part of the personal statement is you'll need to include the contact details of 2 to 3 referees who can attest to the accuracy of your personal statement and your relevant work experience. Now, a common question that we get, because the personal statement is a part of the assessment into the program, is, do I need to have experience with animals to get an offer for the DVM? No. Experience can can make you more competitive for selection, but it is not a mandatory requirement for you to gain a place into the program. Do my referees need to be veterinarians or work in animal health and sciences? No, they do not. It would be great if they were, but we'd much prefer a higher quality referee who can attest to the accuracy of your statement over a lower quality referee with an animal health and sciences background who can't speak to yourself and your character and your statement as well. How does the personal statement impact selection? It adds points to your DVM adjusted WAM, up to 4 points, which I'll go through in a second. English language requirements. All applicants must satisfy the English language requirements of the course, and if you've been studying in Australia, you've most likely met this already. So if applicants have completed a degree that was taught and assessed entirely in English, comprising of at least 2 years full-time study or equivalent, they may automatically meet the English language requirements for the University of Melbourne. If you haven't met the English language requirements via this option, you may also pursue a test, an English language test, and these must be taken at a dedicated testing centre. More information about how to meet these requirements can be made available online, but if you've studied in Australia in the past 2 years, then your transcripts from your Australian studies will generally meet the English language requirements. Graduate Access Melbourne. If you're applying for a graduate degree and are experiencing disadvantage or have in your undergraduate degree, you may be eligible for Graduate Access Melbourne. This is available to domestic applicants, and it's the university's equity program for domestic graduate students. GAM can help you to improve your chances of selection into the DVM and can increase your chances of selection overall and also consideration for a Commonwealth supported place, as well as open up additional considerations for things like Graduate Access Melbourne bursaries, so some financial assistance. The categories listed on this slide are the different Graduate Access Melbourne categories, and you can find information about the requirements and what is considered for each category online. But please note, additional documentation may be required, and I'd encourage you just to refer to the website if you think that these things apply to you. Competitive entry. What does a competitive score mean, and how are you actually considered competitive for the program? Now, when you're reading the website and the selection guidelines, it can feel a little bit confusing. So I've tried to break it down as best as possible. But basically, your overall selection score for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine is made up of two parts. 75% your DVM weighted average mark, so looking in the green, and 25% is your Casper Test result. That 75%, the DVM weighted average mark, is calculated from your results at university, as well as additional points awarded for different assessment factors. Your results at university are considered in two parts again. Sorry, we're traveling a bit backwards. So your 75% of your DVM WAM is made up of your final year subject average score. So these are subjects typically in Australia completed in your third year or third year level subjects. It's your average score from them times by 0.75% or 75%. The second part to your DVM weighted average mark is your penultimate year level subjects or your second year level subjects. An average is taken from those, and that makes up 25% of your DVM WAM. Additional points are added to this score, the whole DVM WAM score, from your personal statement, additional study at a postgraduate level, and your Graduate Access Melbourne, and the different points available are listed there. Once you've got your WAM, you then add your Casper Test result, and your overall calculated WAM constitutes 75% of your overall selection score, and the Casper Test result makes up 25%. It's a little bit confusing. There's a few bit of maths to it, but once you kind of break it down and have a look at your results, it can make a little bit more sense. That's just a explanation of how to kind of calculate that average. And please note that subjects are classified as final or penultimate based on the level of difficulty of the subject content, not the time of year that it's completed. Fail grades are included in this calculation, and non-subject science subjects are included in this calculation except for double degrees. So if you've completed a double undergraduate degree, I'd encourage you to contact us so we can clarify how this calculation would work for you. And there are special guidelines for results not represented, or subject results not represented as percentages or marks out of 100. These are listed in the selection guidelines. I encourage you to take a look. Finally, how do I apply? You apply online, as is everything in this digital age. You can submit an application online via the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine webpage on the Study Melbourne at the University of Melbourne course information pages. I've got some key dates for domestic applications listed, and you might want to take note of them and put them in your calendars and your diaries. Applications for the program open on Thursday the 19th of October and close on the 30th of November. And all final documents, so your transcripts pretty much, need to be supplied by Wednesday the 3rd of January and no later for your application to remain valid. This includes studies completed as part of exchange, and it also includes studies that you may not have completed and then may be transferred to another undergraduate degree or received advanced standing for. We need to get all your subject results. And outcomes for this program are issued in early February of 2024. We'll run into some Q&A, but whilst I'm talking about Q&A, I'm going to keep this page up. This is where you can contact Stop One. Those phone numbers there are for our student services, also called Stop One. You can book an appointment with us online at the Faculty of Science using that link. You can submit an inquiry specifically for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine using that link. And you can also take a look at the selection guidelines and the Melbourne Veterinary School Common FAQs about the DVM as well. Okay, let's take a look at some of the approved subjects. I've got one here that says, how long after the application will you find out if you've been successful? Thank you, Jason, for asking that question. Application outcomes will be issued in early February of 2024. I've got another question from Olivia saying, do we need to provide a degree copy or just the final transcript? Typically, an approved final transcript that shows evidence of course completion will be accepted. If we need additional documents or if the documents are unclear, we will ask you for, we will send you an email as part of the application process. Please note if you have any other questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A function. I'm just having a look at what's been already answered, and I'm just going to touch on a question that was submitted about, there's a question that says, what is the lowest WAM that is accepted into the degree? Typically for domestic students, a weighted average mark of about 80% is considered competitive for a Commonwealth supported place, ranging down to about 75% to be considered for an Australian full fee place. Now this can vary with the quality of applications we receive each year. So if we've got lots of students who are really, really high achievers applying all at once, we might find that less of our students in the 80% WAM area, they may not receive a CSP and may instead receive an Australian full fee place. Okay, I've got another question from Bianca. How many CSPs are offered each year? And do we find out if we are offered a CSP when we get an offer, or do we find that out after we accept an offer? Great question, Bianca. So how many CSPs, the amount of CSPs available each year varies, but it's typically around about 50 to 60, depending on how many the Australian government allocates each year. You'll find out that you've got a CSP when you receive your offer. Your offer will specifically state, congratulations, you received an offer for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine with the fee type Commonwealth supported place or Australian full fee place. So you'll know what you're getting yourself into and what you're accepting with your offer. Oh, some more questions. Oh, you're all coming through and answering. At the moment, I'm unable to attend. I'm unable to add the course to my application. Will it remain closed until October 19th? Yes, as stated before, applications only open for this program on October 19th and close November 30th. So you won't be able to submit an application or start an application before this time. Do you have to come directly out of an undergraduate degree, or can you take a year off and work after your undergraduate, then go back and do the DVM? Yes, you can take a break from study between starting the DVM and your undergraduate degree. You do not need to start it directly after you've completed your undergraduate degree. However, we cannot defer your offer. You'll just need to apply for the available intake. Okay. I've got a question from Molly. During the application process, are you able to save your progress and continue filling out the requirements at a later date? Yes, you can. However, it's probably best if you can sit down and get it done in one sitting, just to make sure that you're not missing parts. And because of how small the application window is, you would probably just want to get it done in one sitting. If I've completed an undergraduate degree, but I've taken a few years off uni, how is my DVM calculated? Entirely the same. We look at your transcripts. There's no way of calculating or including time off in your DVM WAM calculations. Is the application process one way, or will we have a chance to amend or improve our applications based on feedback from the University of Melbourne? You'll be able to amend or improve your application after you've received your outcome. You are welcome, as I've just explained before, to interact with your application after it's submitted, but you won't be able to change any of the details unless it's entirely essential for you to do so, or you might require some assistance from Stop 1 to do this. We will contact you if something's missing. That's something that you can amend or improve, but the overall quality of your application, you would need to wait until the next intake to improve that. I hope that answers your question. If I complete a master's related biological degree, would I be able to use the results from that degree to be considered for a CSP in the DVM degree if I have a WAM over 75? Unfortunately, no. This is where things get a little bit strict. We consider your results from your undergraduate degree. So yes, a master's can add additional points. So like up to a maximum of 4 points for just postgraduate study in general. But we cannot use those scores to calculate your DVM WAM. Those will come from your undergraduate degree. I've got another question here. If my DVM isn't where it needs to be, would adding a second undergrad degree be my best chance of getting in? Yes, it's a hard slog to do this, but if your scores from your undergraduate degree are not competitive, or they were too low, or you haven't fared well, the best way that you can dramatically improve your chances of selection are by completing another undergraduate degree and getting better grades in that undergraduate degree. That undergraduate degree would need to be one of the approved or considered major areas of study. I've got a question here. Fantastic question. If you miss out on a spot in the course for the 2024 intake, can you retake the Casper the following year and reapply? Yes, you can. So to clarify, the Casper can only be sat once per intake for the program, or once per application round or period. So you can only sit it once for the 2024 intake. If you're unsuccessful and you want to reapply, or let's say you don't accept and you need to reapply, you'll need to sit it again for the following intake or the following calendar year. I've got a question for Bianca again. I just have one more. Can we choose electives in our second or third year, or are our courses set out for us throughout the duration of the program? The program is set. Yes, you get track opportunities, and yes, you get a little bit more opportunity to do a variety of different things in your third and fourth year with track, and your placements with in your fourth year, and also doing placements in your first and second year outside of clinical placements. But the remainder of the program is set this is why we've got such a strong cohort, because you'll be hanging out and studying with the same people doing the same subjects at the same time. So that's a benefit, but yeah, the flexibility is it's not a very flexible program in terms of subject content. Okay, let me have a look. We've got another question. Will you still be considered for the accelerated pathway for the DVM if you study part-time for 1 year during your undergraduate degree? Now, I haven't spoken about the accelerated pathway. This is not for this webinar. The accelerated pathway is another application or kind of pathway to the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, specifically available to Bachelor of Science students studying at the University of Melbourne. And the answer is, if you're currently in the Bachelor of Science and you're looking to apply for the Veterinary Biosciences accelerated pathway to the DVM, yes, you can still be considered for the accelerated pathway. If you study part-time in your first year, you won't be able to study part-time as part of the Veterinary Biosciences major, there is no part-time study available in the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. If you want more information about the accelerated pathway, I encourage you to check out online resources. But today is more so about graduate entry. I've got a question from Cha. Cha is asking whether at Monash University used to offer a postgraduate pharmacy bachelor's degree where students will graduate with a Bachelor of Pharmacy after 2 years of study. Would this be accepted for application into the DVM? I'd ask you to please submit an inquiry to us. This sounds like a different kind of program. I'm just going to make sure, this stopped sharing. Oopsie. I'm just going to make sure that those links are available for you to use. I'd encourage you to please submit an application to have a chat with us about that particular program. What is the cost of the subject if needing to pay up front? Off the top of my head, I cannot tell you, but the entire cost of the program, if you're looking at Australian full fee place, will be about $270-ish thousand. I can't remember the particular number off my head, but costs for subjects are listed on the website, and you'll also get it's like a fee account statement from us that'll outline what is required. Okay, I've got another question, and please note that this webinar is being recorded, so if you do need to double check details, you will be able to access a copy of this, and we're going to put this up on our website, as well as most of the information that I've talked about today is available in the selection guidelines. I've just put a voice to it. So I've got a question here that says, could you go over the majors that are accepted as undergraduate degrees, again, to be accepted into the DVM? Basically, it's biological science-based majors, so things like biosciences, veterinary biosciences, agricultural sciences. I'd encourage you to look at the list that is detailed in the selection guidelines to refer back to, or have a listen to this webinar recording. I've got a question, a technical admin question about student IDs, which is pretty straightforward. Is my registered student ID going to be the same as my alumni student ID if I've previously completed a degree at the University of Melbourne? If you've studied at the University of Melbourne and you have a student ID, your student ID will be yours for life. So please do not create a duplicate student account or another student ID. The ID that you use for this application will be the same as your ID that you've used to apply to us previously and study with us at a previous time. I've got a question from Holly, and this is a great question. Like the question before, if your weighted average mark isn't high enough, and you complete another bachelor's degree, are the scores calculated separate from previous bachelor's degrees, or can you use previous subjects to calculate the WAM as well, e.g. credit points? Really good question. So if you're in that situation and you need to complete another undergraduate degree, let's say, and most likely you would receive advanced standing or subject credit to the new or the second bachelor's degree you would need to complete. So that means that results from your prior studies, your first bachelor's degree, may be included in your transcripts and results, or may comprise part of the completion of your second undergraduate degree. The answer is if results from your previous undergraduate degree are used to grant subject credit in your second and third year of study in your second bachelor's degree, then yes, those scores would be included in your DBM-WAM calculations. So I would encourage you that if you're in this boat, maybe to chat with the university that you're looking to do your second undergraduate degree with, to specify where those credit points and advanced standing kind of points sit and which year levels they impact. One more question and then we'll need to wrap up. It's getting quite late. Oh, I've got two more. I'm going to do two more. I'll try and answer as many as possible. I saw, this is more about Graduate Access Melbourne. I saw that there was a Graduate Access Melbourne showed women in engineering. And what does that mean in terms of graduate access, and how will having a degree in engineering influence your acceptance into the DBM if it's not a biology related major? I'd encourage you to take a look at the Graduate Access Melbourne website. This is not what the Women in Engineering is for. It's more about women in engineering or women who are trying to apply for engineering programs. It's not really related to the veterinary medicine applications, but it is a category that's available. Oh, this is a fantastic question from Celine. Do some undergraduate degrees have more of an opportunity to get in, or is it just based on your overall selection score? Great question. The University of Melbourne does not preference one university or another for purposes of selection into the DBM. Obviously, there are some dedicated spots available to students from our Bachelor of Science via our accelerated pathway. However, external to that for graduate entry, no matter where you study, as long as the quality of the institution is good and considered highly, your chances of selection will not be impacted. And typically, if you're studying in Australia, this will be of a fairly high-ranking institution anyway. Oh dear, we've got more questions coming through. So many from you guys. You're hungry for questions. So, it's a thank you from Jason. Thank you for running the session. Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate that. I've got a question here asking about, is there a limitation on how many relevant work experience hours we can add? No, but please only include work experience that is relevant to veterinary sciences or the animal profession. Or if you think it's fit to include in the veterinary, in your personal statement, please do include it. But if you don't think it's relevant, don't include it. The work experience tab is not included in that 500-word limit. That is purely for the personal statement, the personal essay part of the personal statement. Can we submit more than one course as an equivalent for a prerequisite if we feel that more than one course covered the content required for us to have studied? So this is going back to subject prerequisites. Great question. Typically, we'll look at your transcript, and most Australian universities that have applied to us, they'll be included in that prerequisite list. So I'd encourage you to look there. If you're unsure and you're trying to combine different subjects to meet that requirement, please submit an inquiry so we can have a chat. But first, please look at those, the available approved subject list in the selection guidelines. Please use the link displayed to have a look there. I've got a thank you from Molly, and a one last question that says, can you get into the DVM degree based mostly on work experience in the relevant field and high quality referees from people in the relevant field? No, your score for selection will be considered, the main part or component of your selection for entry will be your undergraduate degree. You can't base your selection entirely off work experience, although work experience can add to your selection or your competitiveness for selection. Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for all the thank yous. I hope you have enjoyed the session, and I hope you have found it informative and insightful, and that it's got you all prepared to apply for the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, either for 2024 or onwards. Please note that this session has been recorded and will be circulated, so you'll be able to refer back, and we'll be providing a link on our DVM Doctor of Veterinary Medicine study website for you to access it in future. Okay, thank you so much.